The story begins in a field at the top of the mountains. One morning, a man named Valentine goes to his pickup truck after relieving himself. He then wakes up his friend Earl, calling him in a funny way and telling him to move. Earl doesn't respond and continues sleeping. Valentine sees a bunch of cows and gets the idea to play a prank on Earl to wake him up. He decides to wake his partner by pretending there's a catastrophe, shaking the vehicle and shouting. As a result, Earl falls out of the car and wakes up from his sleep to his friend's call. Valentine then bursts into laughter, finding what he did hilarious. He takes a cigarette from his pocket and offers one to Earl. The two light their cigarettes, and Earl asks Valentine if he has prepared breakfast for the two of them. Valentine replies that he hasn't, saying that he made breakfast for them yesterday. Earl denies that Valentine made breakfast yesterday and insists that it's Valentine's turn to cook for both of them. Soon after, they continue their work as handymen in the field. After work, they drive somewhere, discussing the day's agenda. Earl complains that Valentine never plans ahead. While arguing, Valentine spots someone while driving. They approach a girl named Rhonda. She introduces herself, saying she's studying seismology. On the other hand, Valentine's expectations of the girl disappoint him because he was hoping for a girl to his liking. Rhonda asks if anyone has been drilling or blasting, or doing any activity that causes tremors in the ground. Valentine laughs nervously and says no. Rhonda then says she's been getting some very strange readings from her seismograph and adds that the school's machine has been there for 3 years and has never recorded anything like this. Earl then suggests that Rhonda ask around to see if anyone has heard anything. Rhonda thanks them for answering her questions, and the guys get ready to leave. After a while, they arrive in the town of Perfection and go to Walter Chang's market. Inside the market, a woman greets them and asks what they were doing. Valentine replies that they met Rhonda, and Earl adds that Rhonda was having trouble with her stuff. After talking to the people, they apologize, saying they have something to do. Suddenly, the ground near Rhonda starts to tremble as the earth shifts. While Rhonda is busy fixing her things, the ground begins to move towards her, as if something is crawling underneath. Rhonda doesn't notice, but luckily she gets into her vehicle before the ground reaches her. Valentine and Earl finish their agenda and rest on a couch right where they were working. Valentine offers Earl a drink, and they talk about their jobs. After a brief rest, they continue to work. Valentine then asks Melvin to lend a hand, as most of the stuff belongs to him. Melvin refuses and orders them to buy him a beer at the store. Earl responds to Melvin, saying that beer is for adults. On the other hand, Valentine keeps complaining about their jobs, which leads to an argument. While arguing, the pipe they were using leaks, and the liquid sprays directly into their faces. Melvin laughs at them as they are hit by the liquid from the pipe. After a while, they load the things into the vehicle, and as they prepare to leave, a woman named Nancy stops them and asks Valentine and Earl to stay a bit longer and work on her new ceramic oven, offering free lunch and beers as an incentive. However, they decline the offer and face the temptation by driving off happily. After driving for a while, Valentine spots someone on the electricity tower. When they get out of the car, they discover that it's Edgar. They try to convince Edgar to come down from the tower, but since there's no response, Valentine and Earl draw straws to decide who will get Edgar down. Valentine loses and starts to climb the tower. As he gets closer to Edgar, he realizes something is wrong. Valentine discovers that Edgar is already dead. He quickly brings Edgar's body down. They go to the doctor. Valentine asks if he died of a heart attack. The doctor replies that he didn't and says he died of dehydration. Valentine is confused, saying it doesn't make sense since dying of dehydration takes a few days. Earl is also confused and tries to question the reason for his death. The next scene shows an elderly man doing his work when he suddenly notices something is wrong with his flock of sheep. But the old man continues his work and ignores his thoughts. While working, the old man is caught by surprise and is dragged to the ground by something unknown. The flock of sheep continues to panic and eventually shares the same fate as the old man. Valentine and Earl are still questioning Edgar's death, even after leaving the doctor's office. While driving, they stop and quickly get out of the vehicle, surprised. They discover the dead bodies of the flock of sheep inside the fences. The two knock on the old man's house door, but there is no response. They enter and, not finding any sign of him, go to where the old man was working earlier and find his hat. Valentine picks up the hat and discovers the old man's head buried in the ground. They scream at the sight of his body and fear the situation. Two workers are working beside the road when Valentine and Earl pass by, telling them to get out of there because there's a killer on the loose. They quickly leave after warning the workers. Despite the warning, the workers continue drilling a hole in the road and ignore the warning. They keep drilling until, strangely, blood starts to gush from beneath the road. The drill is then dragged by something underground and accidentally drags the worker along because of the cord wrapped around his leg. He screams for his companion's help, but as the companion follows to save him, rocks from the hill begin to roll due to the tremor, and unfortunately, the man is crushed. In town, someone complains that part of the cattle is missing. Valentine and Earl arrive. People keep asking what's going on. Nestor tells Valentine and Earl to go to Bixby and talk to the police. They quickly get back in the vehicle and drive. Valentine slams on the brakes when he sees rocks and boulders blocking the way. They get out of the vehicle, looking for the two workers they met earlier. Earl finds one of the workers' bloodied helmets. Valentine is speechless, and in a hurry, they get back into the vehicle. They reverse the car and hit the hillside. When they try to drive, the car doesn't seem to move forward. After much force and effort, the vehicle finally moves. Back in town, they arrive and quickly get out of the vehicle, telling the people what's happening. Then Bert notices something unknown hanging under the car. They observe and analyze the thing. Valentine then adds that this must be the reason why the car didn't work earlier. Bert speculates that this unknown thing must be the reason for the strange happenings in town. Night soon falls. The doctor and his wife are packing their things and plan to go to Bixby in the morning. Suddenly the power goes out. The doctor grabs the flashlight and heads toward the generator. The doctor notices that the generator is gone. His wife approaches, and the doctor hands her the flashlight and pulls the generator's cord. A creature then emerges from the ground. The wife convinces the doctor to flee, but he doesn't listen. Before he can get back to the car, the doctor's leg is grabbed by something beneath the surface. His wife tries to help him, but he is already dragged down. The creature appears in front of the wife. She quickly runs inside the car, but the creature starts destroying the vehicle. Then the car is swallowed by the ground, and the wife screams. Back in town, people are preparing weapons and ammunition, planning to kill the creature. The folks ask Valentine and Earl to ride to Bixby. Morning comes, and they pack their bags to go to the other town. The folks give them guns and ammunition in case the creature appears. They set off for Bixby. After a while, they arrive at the doctor's residence. Earl notices that the car is gone, thinking they must have lost them. While exploring, they discover the couple's car buried in the ground. They quickly get back on their horses and plan not to stop until they reach Bixby. However, their horses suddenly stop. Valentine and Earl become alert, and Earl's horse is dragged down. While Valentine's horse flees, they are surprised by the sudden appearance of the creature. Valentine loads his gun and aims at the creature, but it has no effect. Part of the creature goes back underground, but the large beast soon reveals itself to the two, who, terrified, run for their lives. The creature chases them underground, but when the men jump into a dry water channel, the creature tries to break through the concrete wall but fails and dies from the impact. Rhonda suddenly appears on top of the wall, asking if they noticed anything strange and is surprised to see the creature's dead body. They examine the creature's body, and Rhonda states that the creature, having no eyes, must be completely subterranean. While Valentine and Earl are talking, Rhonda interrupts, telling them to shut up and that there are 3 more of these creatures. The 3 quickly head towards Rhonda's vehicle, but the seismic machine detects a vibration coming from the ground. They quickly run onto a rock, as the creature can't climb high places. After a few hours of waiting, Valentine checks to see if the creature is still waiting for them. It appears, and Valentine quickly climbs back onto the rock, leaving the group stuck and spending the night there. The next morning arrives, and Valentine checks again to see if the creature is still there, and unfortunately, it shows up again. Rhonda has an idea and quickly grabs a long branch, using it to cross to another rock. The men do the same and manage to move from rock to rock until they reach the vehicle. They quickly start the engine and speed away from the area. Then, they return to the town. Valentine angrily shouts at the people, telling them they're underestimating the creatures. They plan to escape, and Rhonda suggests going to the mountains to the west and walking to Bixby. Nancy, on the other hand, is looking for her daughter. Meanwhile, Melvin is attacked by the creature and screams loudly. The group goes to find him, even though they think the young man is joking. They search for him and find him on top of a pole. Then the creature appears. They quickly run inside and try to stay quiet. A moment later, Mindy arrives, playing with her pogo stick, and the creature heads towards her. Valentine and Nancy quickly run to Mindy to save her, and then they manage to escape, with some entering the store. Valentine helps Rhonda by putting bandages on her wounds when suddenly the freezer starts making noise, and soon the creature enters the place from below and grabs the store owner. He is dragged underground and devoured. Soon after, another creature emerges from the ground. Everyone quickly tries to climb to the roof. Some manage, except Rhonda, who, while on top of the shelves, is knocked off by the monster and falls through the window outside. But, fortunately, she climbs onto the water tower next to the store before the creature can get her. Bert and a woman return from patrol, unaware of what's happening. The monster heads towards Bert's basement, breaks the wall, and grabs his leg, but the woman shoots the creature with a gun, and it lets go. They keep shooting the creature until it dies. They quickly climb onto the roof, bringing many weapons with them. Rhonda notices that the creature is planning something. Moments later, the creature tries to tip over the houses. Nestor is dragged by the creature when he falls from his trailer. When they change plans, the creature damages Bert's vehicle, which is their only means of escape. But then, Earl has an idea. A man starts the tractor's engine, and it begins to move shortly after. While the creature chases the tractor, Valentine runs towards the vehicle while it's distracted, but the tractor stops. The creature starts heading towards Valentine, but Rhonda manages to distract the creature, which now heads towards them. Valentine quickly starts the large tractor and heads towards the group. Rhonda and the rest of the group manage to climb onto the vehicle, and they head towards the mountain. Later, the vehicle begins to collapse, so everyone gets out and runs to the nearby rocks. Earl has a new idea. They lure the underground beast and throw a bomb into the creature's mouth. As a result, the bomb explodes in its mouth, killing it. They try to lure the other one, but this time, it manages to throw the bomb back at them. Fortunately, they move away from the explosives. Valentine, Earl, and Rhonda try to climb the rock, but the creature blocks them. The others try to distract the creature by making noise, but the creature is smart and doesn't fall for the distractions. Valentine has a plan, and the three start running towards the slope, but they are cornered by the creature. Valentine throws the bomb, but it misses the monster. The creature runs towards Valentine and almost catches him, but Valentine escapes thanks to his luck. Finally, the creature falls off the slope and dies. The group celebrates because they apparently defeated the last of the only 3 creatures they believe exist. The scene shifts to the Petromaya oil fields in Chiapas, Mexico. We see a man struggling and holding onto the large pipelines to stay above ground. Suddenly, something underground starts moving towards him. The scared man hops onto each oil drum to reach the van ahead safely. Unfortunately, the underground creature catches up to him and topples the oil drums he just passed. The man jumps hurriedly but accidentally falls to the ground. Suddenly, a huge creature, similar to the ones from Bixby, emerges from the ground and swallows the man whole. Meanwhile, in Perfection Valley, Nevada, Earl receives visitors at his ostrich farm. One of his visitors, named Carlos, informs him about the recent events at the Petromaya oil field, which is now infested with graboids, as the creatures are called. Carlos says his workers were killed by these large creatures. Earl, disheartened, asks if there are more of them. Carlos says they need a specialist to eliminate the graboids. Earl realizes they want him to go hunt them, so he immediately declines the offer, even though Carlos says they are willing to pay a lot of money. Later, Carlos's driver, Grady, convinces him by mentioning the amount Carlos is willing to pay for each graboid killed. Grady gets into Earl's van and says the military is willing to send explosives to eliminate the graboids. Earl closes the deal with Carlos, and Grady volunteers to be his partner in the hunt. In the next moment, the two drive to the Petromaya oil field. Upon arrival, Earl discovers the company is willing to double his payment if he can capture a graboid alive. Carlos then shows them the weapons and explosives sent by the army. He also introduces them to an engineer. The two also meet a geologist who seems to catch Earl's attention. The geologist's assistant also meets them afterward. Later that night, Earl and the geologist, named Kate, talk about the work inside the refinery. The geologist says that 6 people were killed in the field and shows him a map. The next day, Earl and Grady drive a vehicle, making loud noises with the help of a long chain attached to the back of the vehicle. They use themselves as bait for the graboids because graboids hunt their prey by sound. The team is complacent, as they have a monitoring device in the vehicle. They start hunting and killing the graboids that chase them, using remote-controlled mini-cars armed with explosives. They press a remote to detonate each bomb after a graboid swallows a mini-car. Another day passes, and Grady almost becomes a graboid's lunch. The creature swallows the chain at the back of the vehicle and starts dragging them. Earl slams on the brakes, but it is no match for the graboid's strength, which pulls them across the field. Fortunately, a large rock formation cuts the chain, freeing them from the creature's grip. In the next moment, they unexpectedly encounter a large number of graboids, leaving them no choice but to call for help from Earl's friend, Bert. Earl and a colleague take a break to eat. Surprisingly, Kate discovers that the spikes on the graboids' bodies can be classified as Precambrian rocks, which means the graboids are the oldest form of life on the planet. But the conversation is interrupted when they realize a large graboid is heading towards the refinery they are in. However, the graboid turns out to be Bert, whose large vehicle is loaded with explosives and firearms. The next day, Bert patrols the east while Earl and Grady patrol the west. After a while, the monitoring device detects a graboid, but to their surprise, the creature is moving away from them. Both find the behavior strange and decide to follow it. To their surprise, that graboid was only luring them to swallow their vehicle. Earl accidentally reverses, causing an accident that spills the weapons and explosives from the back of the vehicle. At this moment, Grady hears horrific sounds that seem to be the groans of a graboid. They find the non-aggressive creature still there. Earl points a rifle at it while Grady places a mini-car on the ground and navigates it towards the creature, but it simply doesn't attack. Earl concludes that it must be sick and thinks they have captured a live one. Earl calls for help and tells Kate to send the engineer to pick them up along with the graboid. Night falls, and Earl and Grady stay on top of the vehicle, but a much louder and more horrifying groan surprises them. The two discover that the nearby graboid is already dead and torn apart from the inside, as if something had eaten or emerged from it. Earl sends a message over the radio, but it is no longer working. The two stay alert when they hear the same groaning sound from before and spot the engineer's vehicle in the distance. Suddenly, the engineer stops. Earl and Grady wait a few minutes, but the man remains motionless and gives no sign. They walk towards the engineer's location and realize something is wrong. They see the destroyed vehicle and find the remains of the engineer, prompting them to run away. Meanwhile, Bert tries to send a message over the radio, but no one responds. Earl and Grady come across a destroyed broadcasting station. Grady is furious, thinking the company did this to make things difficult for them, but Earl says the graboids are getting smarter. They hear a grunt and discover a smaller bipedal graboid that tries to attack them, but Earl quickly shoots and kills it. The two decide to leave in a nearby vehicle as more strange creatures arrive. Meanwhile, Bert is ambushed by these new creatures in the middle of the night. The next morning, the geologist is still struggling to contact anyone. The creatures return to the oil refinery and attack the geologist's assistant outside. Earl and Grady rescue the geologist before any of the creatures can attack her. She tells them the creatures killed her assistant, and Earl says the creatures also killed the engineer. The three leave only to find a graboid chewing on the car's engine. Earl shoots and kills it, and they return inside. Shortly after, Bert returns to the refinery with his vehicle almost demolished. Bert ignores them when he meets them because no one warned him about the new creatures. Earl and Grady tell him everything they found, including the radio station incident. Bert expresses his frustration, saying he had to fight a creature hand-to-hand because he was out of ammunition. Earl and Grady congratulate Bert because their friend managed to kill all the creatures he encountered, but Kate hopes he didn't kill all the monsters because they are important for scientific study. To their surprise, Bert captured a graboid and is keeping it in the back of his vehicle. In the next moment, Bert parks the vehicle in the garage. With the creature well secured, the men take it to another compartment. Unfortunately, they have no idea that another of these creatures, still smaller, was hiding in the vehicle. It finds an open meal inside the garage and feasts on it. Based on their investigation, these new creatures seem to hear nothing but can sense human body heat. The now caged creature squeals as it senses the four remaining humans approaching, proving their earlier hypothesis. The creature, which they call Shriekers, becomes hysterical and shrieks even more when it realizes it can't get to its prey. On the other hand, the geologist Kate concludes that the shriek is probably how the Shriekers communicate. Earl says that if they attack any heat source, it is likely why they attack machines, essentially biting anything warm. Grady throws a piece of food from his packed lunch, and everyone sees that the Shrieker eats it even if it isn't hot. They think the Shrieker didn't like it because it repeatedly chokes as if trying to vomit. To their surprise, the Shrieker spits out a smaller creature. The geologist concludes that the creature is hermaphroditic, meaning it can reproduce without hormonal activities. These creatures can reproduce just by consuming enough food and replicating at an incredibly fast rate. Shortly after, Grady notices the smaller one is growing rapidly. Kate continues her explanations, but suddenly, a Shrieker outside almost attacks her through the window. Earl looks through the broken window and discovers they are now feasting on Bert's packed lunches. The four rush out of the refinery and suggest moving to the warehouse, but the geologist opposes because the warehouse is under construction. Shortly after, the Shriekers lose their trail. After some time, the four hide behind detached doors as they carefully cross, believing it is safer not to be seen by the creatures. Bert asks where they are going, while Earl asks if there are more cars they could use. The geologist says there is still another vehicle in the storage tank. They manage to pass through the area without being noticed but spot a Shrieker in the distance. Bert loads his firearm and causes an explosive shot that cuts the Shrieker in half. The shot pierced everything in front of it, including the car everyone wanted to reach. Now, they can no longer use the car. Due to the unfortunate circumstance, the four split up to find shelter until a lone Shrieker senses them and screams. This results in the other Shriekers sensing them as well. Earl and the geologist hide inside another shed, while Grady climbs an oil tower. Bert then hides inside the bucket of a tractor. Grady spots Bert from where he is and sees that he is surrounded by three Shriekers, whose long, slimy tongues are trying to grab and sense him. Bert pulls out a knife, but Grady tells him to stop moving so the Shriekers won't find him. On the other hand, Earl and the geologist struggle to avoid the Shriekers. The geologist breaks a glass bottle and cuts the smelly tongue of a Shrieker trying to reach the spot where they are hiding. Earl gets an idea and lets hot water run over a piece of clothing they found and adjusts the clothesline until the Shriekers notice it. While the creatures are distracted, the two take the opportunity to escape and climb the same tower Grady is on. Earl asks Grady where Bert is, and they all see Bert still trapped inside the tractor bucket. Unfortunately, Bert is surrounded by the Shriekers. Bert complains about the team's lack of preparation and argues with Earl. They blame Grady since he was the one who convinced Earl to go on the hunt. The geologist tells them to stop arguing, relax a bit, and just wait for help. In the next moment, Earl and the geologist have a deeper and more personal conversation while spending time alone on the tower. Grady interrupts them and points something out. He notices that the Shriekers are learning to stack on top of each other to reach them on the tower. Bert wakes up and sees what is happening through the reflection of his knife. He takes the opportunity to get out of hiding and taunts the Shriekers. Bert uses himself as bait for the creatures and locks them inside the garage. Just when they think the problem is solved, the Shriekers find something to eat inside the garage. The four automatically try to remember what food could be in there. The geologist remembers some candy, and Bert and Grady recall seeing rice flour on the packaging of one of the lunches. Then, Earl spots a fire extinguisher and gets an idea. He wraps his head with a jacket and tells the geologist and Bert to spray the extinguisher on him. He covers himself with carbon dioxide so the Shriekers won't detect his heat when he enters. Shortly after, Earl goes in and carefully approaches Bert's vehicle. While the three remaining people watch through the window, to their surprise, they see that the Shriekers have multiplied inside. Earl's carbon dioxide cover begins to melt, and a Shrieker senses him. He grabs a remote control for the explosives in Bert's car. Meanwhile, the three people outside prepare a hose to use as a rope, but it is too short. Earl sets the bomb and uses a ceiling lamp to swing toward the open window, but it breaks, causing him to fall to the floor where the Shriekers are. He grabs the cut hose that Grady and Kate are holding outside and finally gets out. He tells everyone to run because he set a bomb inside. They escape, and soon a massive explosion destroys the entire facility. After everything that happened, Earl and the geologist Kate decide to get romantically involved and continue their relationship. Meanwhile, Grady suggests opening a monster-themed park with the money promised by the company and the reward they will receive.